everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the new Surefire X300 Ultra 1000 lumen weapon mounted light. That's right, the rumors were true. Surefire has been working on a new 1000 lumen X300 Ultra. The most telling part about this, or the most, I guess, worth mentioning part about this, is it shares the exact same footprint that you're already familiar with, the one that you know and love with the Ultra line that came out a few years ago and has been updated since. And now it has been updated again with additional output of 1000 lumens. So if you don't like the body style of the Masterfire series of lights, such as the XH35 or the XH30, now for holster compatibility and just general ease of use, you can get 1000 lumen output in the X300 Ultra footprint. But is it worth it? I got my hands on the new X300 Ultra about 6 months prior to the release. I was able to get in some I guess, final phase T&E. It's nothing official. I was just able to get it before other people, so I was able to start my review process sooner. Generally, as you know, anything firearms related, as far as firearms accessories or firearms themselves, I generally do a 2,000 round review process to give a pretty good sample size of at least that initial life expectancy. Because I've had this light for an extended period of time since I got it, I was able to do more than 2,000 rounds. In fact, right now I'm sitting at about 10,000 rounds on multiple platforms because the light shared the same footprint, or shares the same footprint and the same appearance as the previous generation of X300 Ultra. I didn't have to worry about hiding it from people or anything like that, because unless you knew what you're looking at and you're looking really close, specifically at the serial number, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that it was anything different from the current offering, or the previous generation now offering, of the X300 Ultra. So very, very high round count respective to what I'm usually going to do for a review. And I like that because it gives me a much, much larger opportunity, or much greater opportunity, to, if there is going to be a problem, to be able to observe it within that, I guess, life cycle of the review process. The new light shares the same footprint, and that's something that people were asking for. Like I mentioned, if you weren't interested in the XH line, the 35 or the 30, some people were holding out hope that Surefire was in fact working on a new Ultra and it was going to share the same body, because that means holster compatibility carries forward and you don't have to worry about sourcing a new concealment holster, or for some people even more cost prohibitive, a new duty holster. So rest assured, this light is going to work in every holster that you currently have for the same model, X300 Ultra. Two factors we want to always look at: performance and durability. Surefire is a venerable company. They've been around for a long time, and they have arguably been the standard in tactical lights, if you will, purpose-built weapon-mounted lights, work lights, duty lights. So performance and durability of something that Surefire have always been known for. Their failure rate is very low, and their performance has always been good. I've been using Surefire products for well over a decade, a little bit longer than that, and I've always been impressed with the quality of the lights, the construction, the durability. Now, every now and then, a competitive light company or a competing light company is able to produce a light that on the numbers has more lumens or more candela. And me, not necessarily being brand loyal, I want to go where the quality is. I'm more than willing to check those lights out, but I usually end up coming back to Surefire because if they don't necessarily do it first, they're usually going to do it very, very well when they finally are able to meet whatever the current standard of lumen output is. They put a lot of money and a lot of time into R&D to get things done correctly. It doesn't mean that other lights aren't quality, because there are other great lights out there, but talking specifically about Surefire and the advantages of Surefire, you've got that company legacy, which is a little bit esoteric, if you will, but it lends itself very well to, okay, I recognize this is a very well established brand, a brand that's been around for a long time, and it's a company that understands what their lights are ultimately going to be used for, and that's something that I definitely appreciate. While I do like the fact that Surefire has made inroads into trying to appeal to the citizen shooter more than the military law enforcement tier 1 door kicker guys, I think they finally realized that the citizen shooter, who isn't necessarily, you know, halo jumping into Afghanistan, wants the same performance out of the light that that guy does. And that's something that lends itself very well towards ultimate product development, ultimate product design, and the fact that, okay, people are starting to understand the mechanics and the theory behind proper light use, so we don't have to create a less powerful or a different design of light. to appeal to that customer because they both want the same thing. So let's talk performance. 1,000 lumens. Lumens has become the standard measurement that everybody uses in marketing for their product. And lumens is a very important number. It's obviously a metric. It's a measurement, if you will. And it's a number that we use to kind of at least get an idea of, okay, I understand that 1,000 lumens is going to be brighter than 500 or 400 or 300. There still is that mentality out there of you can have too much light. All those people are wrong. I've talked about that in the past. 1,000 lumens on a handgun light is to me, very good. It's still not as bright as I want it to be, but I know we're going to get there. But 1,000 lumen output, candela also has to be there. Now this is a handgun dedicated light. One thing about the previous generation of Ultra is it shared the exact same lens and head as the Scout series of lights, which for some reason was a point of contention with some people. They believed that they weren't the same thing when they in fact were. With this ultralight, we actually have a departure where we have a slightly different head lens design that you're going to get from the Scout light. So the Scout, while it's obviously the Scout also pushes more lumens, 1,200 or 1,500 depending on power source. We're getting 1,000 lumens out of this pistol light. On current battery technology, non-rechargeable, that's probably going to be the most that you're going to be able to get out of a handgun mounted light, again, unless you go rechargeable. The beam. It has a significant hotspot. To me, the hotspot is larger than previous generations of X300 Ultra, which I actually like. I like it because it's a defined hotspot. It's a very usable hotspot. If I need to use the hotspot for control of a subject, I'm going to be able to do that. I've got enough candela behind this light versus previous generations or versus other lights that I can get that control, establish that control from a greater distance. Now again, it is a handgun light, so it's for handgun purposes. And we can always go down the rabbit hole of you might have to use your handgun in a low light environment to engage at 50 yards. It's very possible. If you had to do that, this light's still going to give you enough lumen and enough candela to get positive identification at your target at that extended handgun distance. Obviously, for a rifle, I wouldn't recommend it, mainly because unlike the previous generation where the Scout and the X300 Ultra shared the exact same lens, you could get the same performance out of either. With this one, you're really going to have to stick with the Scout light if you want to stay Surefire specific to get rifle focused, pun no pun, performance out of a rifle light. So I would relegate the X300 Ultra to handgun purposes only. Of course, there's a formula in the numbers. You got lumens, and lumens can give you candela, but the numbers do exist a little bit independently of themselves because you can have something with very, very high lumen output. Take the XH35, for example, has very, very high lumens where its candela isn't necessarily there. Now, candela is a number we want for intensity, I guess reach. So the measure of light at a point of a collective distance, a collective point, if you will. So that hotspot is, in a way, what we're looking at for our candela, whereas lumen is the total output of the light overall. It's got enough lumens behind it that you're going to get not only a good hotspot, but you're also getting a lot of spill, and that spill is very usable light. For the people that are worried about blinding themselves off walls because they're not critically thinking through what's actually going on and what they're using their light for, you've got enough spill to be able to umbrella light indoors or baseboard light or just basically, you know, high compression, just look over the top of the light without worrying about backsplash concerns off of white walls, mirrors, television screens, things like that. It's a very workable light, even in compressed environments, small rooms, very, very usable light. Controls remain the same. You can press in for momentary, if momentary is what you want, and you can go up or down, lock on for constant on. I've never been the biggest fan of the Surefire switch design, mainly because I feel like the switches could stand to be just slightly larger. I don't want them to be comically or cartoonishly larger, but I would like them to be a little larger based on how I use the light. I'm not much of a momentary only kind of guy unless I'm using the light strictly for navigation, and if I'm just navigating, I'm probably using a handheld light anyway if there's no reason to have my gun out. But when it comes time to shoot, I do go constant on, and when it's time to stop shooting, or if I'm doing a reload or moving to cover or whatever, then I can just roll my finger up and turn the light off. I do like the fact that I can go up or down for that constant on. There is no spring return on this light like you get with some of the competitive lights, and it's not an inward switch. It's a forward push, or it's an up, or it's a down for your constant on. So the switch design remains the same, which is appealing because it's something that we already know, and you either like it or you don't. I would have liked to seen them change the switches slightly, make them slightly larger, but all in all, I'm already familiar with these switches. I already know how to use them very, very well. I'm just kind of wishing for something versus saying that this is a negative aspect, because it certainly is not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the switch. It's just my own personal preferences. I would have liked to have seen something a little larger offered. Durability. Surefire, venerable name. They've been around for a long time, as I've already said. Is the durability there? Well, the answer to that is absolutely. The durability is definitely there. Not only was I able to get 10,000 rounds on this light, and when I say 10,000 rounds, again, I only shoot 9mm, so I'm not shooting your 40s or your 10 mils or any of those other really, really high power rounds or high pressure, high recoil rounds. But I'm shooting 115, 124, 124 plus P, lots and lots of reps, getting guns, running good, running hot, running fast. If I'm doing my own personal practice and I'm working on something that's a high round count, or during teaching classes, I'm getting a lot of rounds on the light. And I'm not having any problems. And that's a concern that you can have with some lights, is the fact that in conjunction with use and then rapid rates of fire, you can start to have thermal regulation issues if the light starts to flicker or fade, or your battery drains incredibly fast. Any of these other assets. Surefire is boringly reliable. It's a point where you don't even really think about it, and the fact that, like, is my light going to work? You just assume it's going to. It's a constant state mentality of the light's going to function. And of course, it can fail, but it didn't. I never experienced an issue with the light whatsoever, such as flickering, fading, premature battery drain, anything like that. Everything functioned as the way it was supposed to. Even after 10,000 rounds, this is the A model style of connection. Everything is still exactly like it's supposed to be. The light's gone through multiple carbon cycles of where I got it so black I couldn't use it, had to clean it off. Lens remains in good condition. Of course, I do use the cleanse product on all my weapons lights. So I wasn't exposing the lens directly to carbon, because it's just not something I'm going to do, since a product exists to prevent that. But the TIR lens has already been pretty well known for maintaining its integrity through repeated exposures to carbon, and then just the general chemicals and particulates and debris that weapon lights are going to be exposed to. As long as you're not using a super aggressive cleaning product, you're going to maintain the integrity of that lens without any degradation or discoloration, pitting, scratching, anything like that. I'm glad this light exists for a number of reasons. One, because I do like Surefire a lot. Like I said, I'm not necessarily brand loyal, but I've always been pretty partial to Surefire. I've definitely been more than willing to use and try out lights from other companies, but Surefire is kind of my home. It's the light I came up on. It's the light I know. It's when I first started learning about and exercising low light techniques and skills. This is the light that I wanted. This is the light that was recommended to me by somebody who already had 10, 15 years, 20 years of experience. Who said, this is what you need. And of course, it's one of those things where you kind of got to experiment a little bit, and you always end up coming home. So it's nice to know that Surefire is staying in the Lumen war, and I don't expect them to go anywhere. I was using Streamlight, the TLR. Yeah, TLR. Sometimes I mix that up and do a total request live, and we're not doing that. It's a good light. 800 lumens, good candela. I'm only getting 200 more lumens out of this, and some people say, is it worth it? Well, based on the light's performance, and I generally don't like to do comparisons, but because I spent so much time using the Streamlight product, I think it's worth mentioning, because I know people are going to ask about it in the questions and comments and any kind of social media interaction about this light when this video comes out. They're going to want to know, like, why'd you switch? That extra 200 lumens is only part of the tale. The other part of the tale is just the overall performance and the relationship between the lumen and the candela output that gives me a more balanced weapon light with, to me, a cleaner light for positive identification in varied environments. Some people think about weapon lights only in those really, really dark environments where it's a little bit closer to the unrealistic side of performance. If it's so dark that you can't see without the light, it's also probably so dark that it's not a realistic environment for your average self-defense scenario. There's going to be some kind of ambient lighting present. And that extra 200 lumens in conjunction with the way that the TIR lens works, the focal point, the hot spot, the spill, gives me a great balance of a light that's able to cut through those photonic barriers and still give me the PID and the reach that I'd want out of a handgun light. So in conclusion, if you're already Surefire loyal, then this is a necessary upgrade. It is more performance over the previous generation of ultralights that it makes sense to upgrade. If you're already using the Masterfire series, such as the XH30, and you're happy with that, and you've already got your holsters for that, you don't necessarily need to switch over to an Ultra. But for duty lights, especially those in law enforcement that are already carrying an X300 Ultra and your holster set up for it, and you don't want to spend a lot of more money changing over not only your duty but your off-duty holsters and things like that. This is just it just makes sense. Just go ahead and when you're able to upgrade up to the new Ultra light, and you'll find that the performance is noticeably better, all things considered very well rounded and balanced, than what you're getting off the previous generations of lights. If you're still like, man, Surefire's so expensive, consider what the light is for, and then consider if having a good light in the environment for what you're thinking of what your light is for is worth that extra cost. Some lights are inexpensive because they're inexpensive. Some lights are expensive because of all the background that went into them, all the R&D, the testing, the product development, the features, and the materials that are used in the light. So I don't really feel the need necessarily to justify the cost of a Surefire versus the cost of a competitive light, only to say that you're actually getting what you pay for. The light's going to be durable, it's going to be long lasting, and it's going to get you to the next generation of lights. Because the Lumen wars aren't ending anytime soon. We're going to continue to see lights push the envelope of performance, which is great. But until Surefire puts out a new X300 Ultra that has even more output, I'm switching back completely over to this weapon light because I want to come home to Surefire. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.